When you think of the Holocaust, your mind probably jumps straight to Hitler, right? But Hitler's horrifying vision needed an architect. It needed someone to turn pure hatred into, well, a timetable, a bureaucrat who could actually manage the logistics of genocide. And today, we're going to dig into the story of that very man, Adolf Eichmann.
So let me ask you this. How do you catch a ghost? I mean, really? After the fall of the Third Reich, one of its most prolific killers just vanished. Poof, gone. For a whole 15 years, he was nothing more than a whisper, a rumor, living a whole new life under a new name on a totally different continent. The hunt to find this guy? It would become one of the most incredible intelligence operations in history. No exaggeration.
And that brings us here, to this very spot. A quiet, unassuming suburb of Buenos Aires, Argentina. The year? 1960. And a trap, 15 years in the making, is just about to be sprung.
All right, let's get right into it. A ghost in Argentina. We are jumping right into the climax of that 15-year manhunt. This is the moment, the exact moment, Israeli intelligence finally closes in on their most wanted Nazi fugitive. This is the story of how they finally caught the ghost.
So how did it happen? Well, the big break came from a totally unexpected place. A young woman's boyfriend, a guy named Klaus, just couldn't stop bragging about his father's, let's say, Nazi past. That little tip, unbelievably, made its way to the Mossad. And just like that, agents were on the ground in Argentina, watching this quiet suburban guy named Ricardo Clement. After weeks of just watching and waiting, they were sure this was him. So on the evening of May 11th, as he got off a bus, boom, the trap was sprung. They bundled him into a car and whisked him away to a secret safe house.
Okay, so picture this. He's in the safe house. They ask his name, he lies, gives them a fake one. They ask again, he lies again. But the third time, they hit him with all the proof they'd gathered, and that was it. The game was over. The ghost was real, and his name was Adolf Eichmann. So who was this guy, really? Okay, let's rewind a bit. To really understand the monster, you kind of have to understand the man. And you know, the man? He had a stunningly, almost painfully ordinary life before all this.
So it's fascinating when you look at this timeline, there are zero early signs of, some kind of evil genius or even a fanatic. Nothing. He was born into a regular middle-class family. He was a pretty bad student, actually. For a while, he was just a traveling salesman for an oil company. It wasn't until 1932, when he was kind of lost and looking for something, that he joined the Nazi Party. And what's wild is, he didn't find his calling in the ideology. He found it in the paperwork, in the organization.
Yeah, let's just be super clear about this. Eichmann wasn't some born killer. He was a mediocre guy, a failed student, a not-so-great salesman. He was a failure in a lot of ways, who just happened to find his purpose in a system that rewarded his knack for organization. And he applied that one talent to the persecution and ultimately the murder of millions of people.
And this is where everything changes. This is where that unremarkable paper pusher becomes the logistical mastermind of genocide. You'll see that his career didn't just grow with the Nazi regime, it perfectly, chillingly mirrored its escalating horrors.
You can see the whole awful progression right here. It starts out, his job is forced emigration, basically getting Jews out of Austria. Then it escalates to forced deportation, which meant cramming them into ghettos. And then, finally, as the Nazi plan shifted to outright mass murder, his role evolved with it. He became the guy in charge of the entire transportation network that fed the death camps.
And just look at what his job actually entailed. He wasn't on the front lines. He wasn't pulling triggers or releasing gas. Nope. He was scheduling trains, confiscating property, compiling lists. He was the administrator of death, the guy who made sure the whole terrifying machine of mass murder ran perfectly on time.
3,000. Just look at that number for a second. What does it even mean? Well, in 1944, when he was at the absolute peak of his so-called efficiency, that was the number of Hungarian Jews that Adolf Eichmann managed to ship to their deaths at Auschwitz, every single day.
So this was the project he was managing, the final solution. It was the Nazis' code name for the systematic, industrial-scale murder of every single Jewish person in Europe. And at the Wannsee Conference in 1942, where this whole horrific plan was formalized, guess who was the secretary? Eichmann. He took the minutes for the meeting, and then he spent the next 3 years of his life turning those minutes into a horrifying reality.
And this right here, this is absolutely critical. Because later on, at his trial, he would claim over and over, "I was just a cog in the machine." But his own bosses? They didn't see him that way at all.
He was Reinhard Heydrich's special expert. And that's not a title you give to some random paper pusher. That title means you have initiative, you have authority, and you have a zealous commitment to the cause.
Okay, so after his incredible capture, Eichmann was secretly flown to Israel to stand trial. And for the very first time, he was going to be forced to face not just his accusers, but the actual survivors of the system he ran so efficiently.
The trial kicked off on April 11, 1961, and the entire world was watching. You had Eichmann sitting in this bulletproof glass box, just listening as they read out the 15 charges against him. Crimes against humanity, war crimes, crimes against the Jewish people, just a whole litany of the absolute horrors he had orchestrated.
So his defense was really simple and honestly pretty chilling. I was just a cog in the machine. I was a transportation guy. I only followed orders. That was his whole story. But the prosecution, led by a guy named Gideon Hausner, they painted a very different picture. They brought in hundreds of documents and over 100 witnesses, many of them survivors, to prove that no, he was no mere cog. He was a deeply committed, powerful, and central figure in the Holocaust.
And then there was this. This quote from 1945 became a centerpiece for the prosecution. I mean, it completely shatters that whole image he tried to build of himself as just some thoughtless paper pusher. Those are not the words of a man who is just following orders. No way. Those are the words of a man boasting about his life's work.
So the trial's verdict, it was pretty much a foregone conclusion. But its real legacy, the reason we're still talking about it today, lies in the really profound and disturbing questions it raised about the very nature of evil.
And the court's verdict? Guilty. His just following orders defense was totally rejected. The ruling was clear. He was no mere cog. He was a principal planner, a central figure, driven by this deep-seated hatred and, frankly, a zealous desire to see the final solution succeed.
So he was sentenced to death. On the night of May 31st, 1962, Adolf Eichmann, the architect of the Holocaust, was executed by hanging. And to this day, it remains the only civil execution ever carried out in the state of Israel.
And that leaves us with the trial's most enduring question. It's a concept the philosopher Hannah Arendt famously called the banality of evil. So, was Eichmann a sadistic, foaming-at-the-mouth monster, or was he something far more terrifying? Just an average man, a bureaucrat obsessed with his career, who was capable of committing this unimaginable evil simply by doing his job, efficiently, without question and without a conscience. And that, right there, is the truly chilling legacy of Adolf Eichmann.